Hey everybody, it's Scotty from Scotty's Record Shop with, even though it's a very odd title for this, it's still just another artist profile, but at the same time I'm going to have some fun with family, picking on family. Because if you love each other, you can pick on each other, right? My sister's already dying from laughter because of the backdrop. Most of you aren't going to get this, and that's okay. It's not meant for everybody. It's meant for one person. This one person happens to be my little sister Dee Dee, and her favorite band in the world is Led Zeppelin. And I did. She asked me to do this a while ago, and I was hesitant because I'm missing a Zeppelin album, one album on vinyl anyway. I've got it on disc, but I just haven't gotten around to getting it. I had a copy of it years ago, and it was trashed. And anyway, but I figured I'd do it. There's several videos of Led Zeppelin out there, of artist profiles, but it's just like I said. This is kind of just as much for my sister and as for anybody else. The backdrop that she's dying about right now, and you should be dying, Dee, because you can't have them. Right here, baby. Take a look at this. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Absolutely not healthy for you, but yummy, yummy, yummy. Fruit Loops. And guess what, Dee? They're all mine. Yeah, mine. Long story. She called me a Fruit Loop felon earlier, because I used to steal all the Fruit Loops when I was a kid. Supposedly. Now, without legal representation, I can't justify that one way or another, but she holds a very, very, very strong resentment, which someday I hope you can let go of, Dee. No, actually, I love my little sister, and she loves me, right? And anyway, we've just had this thing going on all day that's been really, really stupid on Facebook. It's really funny to be a member of my family, let me tell you. Anyway, she wanted me to show Led Zeppelin and talk about their albums and stuff like that a little bit. So the album that I'm missing is the live album on vinyl. And excuse me, the last couple times I've gone to my favorite record place, I just haven't had it. And I'm just not willing to pay what it's going for online. I just don't really want to do that. But I will show you what I have, and I'll tell you what pressings they are, because in the case of like Led Zeppelin, it's really important, isn't it, guys, right? You know, are they first pressings? Ooh, and some of these are. So anyway, let me put my little mouse down, and we'll get right to it, shall we? She wanted to know a little bit, and I'm sorry this is kind of going to be kind of like blah, 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 blah for a lot of you. But Led Zeppelin was rooted in a group called the Yardbirds, which was a great group from the 60s that had started out with Eric Clapton as their guitarist. He left. Jeff Beck jumped in, and then for the last album, Jimmy Page came in, who was eventually be the guitarist for Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page was a very good session player. He played on a lot of records, Donovan records and stuff like that from the 60s. Well, after he got a hold of the Yardbirds, or in the Yardbirds, they kind of fell apart, and he ended up with the name. So they decided to start a new group, kind of the New Yardbirds. Being really sketchy about this, but just to get through it. They recruited a bunch of other people, which would end up being Led Zeppelin. At one of their gigs, I believe it was at one of the gigs, somebody went and told them, man, you guys went over like a Led Zeppelin. You Led Zeppelin, So they thought, well, it's a really good idea. I think we call ourselves Led Zeppelin. I mean, but that's the short version of it. They got signed to Atlantic. Their first album, this is a second pressing of this. 1977, I believe, was when these pressings were made. Yeah, 77-ish or so. On the Atlantic label. Nothing spectacular about the inside. It's just a typical Atlantic label. This is one of those prize things. If you've got a first pressing of this, it's in really great shape. This is in great shape. This pressing is in great shape. But I've not yet found a first pressing, someday maybe. This is a first pressing. No, of this one. I believe it's the first pressing. Led Zeppelin 2, 1969 as well. Gatefold. Great inner cover. And I will show you the inner. You know what? This doesn't have the original inner sleeve. Huh. That's Atlantic anyway, just so you guys know. Original. Nice and thick. Vinyl is nice and thick. I don't know whatever happened to the inner sleeve. At one point it had an original Atlantic inner sleeve. Not in there, is it? No, I guess not. I guess you just never know. The next album, which I didn't get into quite as much. Zeppelin 3. And this is a second pressing again from 77, I believe. And there's your inside, and there's that, the back. Does have that wheel. There's a wheel inside there that moves. I don't know if you can see it. The cover is really kind of cool. It's got a wheel. Pin right there, and the wheel turns. A cool cover. And not a bad album. It's just taken, as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate this album a lot more. There's a second pressing. First pressing of this one, this is really kind of a great thing. I love this album. I've said it in the past too. It's Led Zeppelin. Well, I call it Led Zeppelin 4. You can call it whatever you want. It's their fourth album. There's your inner sleeve right there. Inner part of the gatefold. Back cover. A little bit of ring wear, but I mean this album's 42 years old. So this one did have a custom inner. See if I can pull it out. What does that look like on the inside? First copy my family ever had of this was on 8-track. I remember it very well because I was only like 5 years old, and it was the album that, and I've said this in the past, it's the album that actually helped me realize that I could drum, even at the age of like 5. When the levee breaks, it was just such a heavy drum beat, just an amazing thing. And I did it the first time I tried it. I mean, it's 5 years old. Just started playing it. My brother couldn't figure out, how did you do that? I was just drumming on my knees or whatever. You know, he couldn't figure it out. I don't know. Anyway, Led Zeppelin 4, that's the album with Stairway to Heaven, Rock and Roll. Black Dog, Dee, right? Great record. Okay, next one. Houses of the Holy, 1973. I really like the inside of this one. Very colorful. Cover on this took a while for them to get right because of pressing issues, printing issues. It just wasn't coming out right. This is the second pressing. Did I say that? I wasn't sure. Here's your inner sleeve of that. Again, around 1977. And nothing different. These were all here. Garden Variety, Atlantic. Hello, which way? There we go. Atlantic Records. This, honestly, probably is my favorite Led Zeppelin album now. The first album where Jimmy Page had a little home studio to work things out on before he came in. So this album is much more textured. There's a lot more guitar layering. Just a fantastic record. They decided to start their own record label. Why not? They could. It's not like they couldn't afford it. And the first record that they issued on their own record label, the first record to be issued on their record label by anybody was Bad Company's first album, I believe. But this was the first one they put out. Physical Graffiti. Also a double album. Got a really cool, inner sleeve. If you pull both these things out, it's an apartment. You can see my finger inside there, right? Let me pull out one of the... What? That was in the wrong... Okay, well, anyway. There's your Swan Song label. Another great record from them, 1975. In my opinion, this, again, here we go with an opinion. As far as Led Zeppelin bootlegs are concerned, some of the stuff that stemmed from this tour really just, oh my God, just fantastic. So anyway, physical graffiti. There's your back, by the way. This is a first pressing of this. Not in perfect shape. You've got some sticker crap here, and the cover's a little worn, but the vinyl is in great shape. And I've said it a million times before, but we don't play the covers, do we? Right? We play the vinyl. This is my least favorite Led Zeppelin album, and some people are like, ugh, you know. But I got this really, really cheap. It's not in the best of shape cover-wise, but Presence. It was the first Led Zeppelin album to end up, the only Led Zeppelin probably album to end up in discount pens. There's some great stuff on here. Just overall, I didn't really care as much for it, you know. There's your, excuse me, your inner sleeve of that one. Again, Swan Song. This is a first pressing as well. But someday I'll find a better cover. I could care less if the vinyl in this is in great shape. The cover is a little beat up, but when I find a better cover, again, Zeppelin stuff is so overpriced. It's just so expensive, usually out in the wild. Okay, this is the album that I have the least amount of information about because there are several different cover variations. And that's In Through the Outdoor. 1979. This came in a paper bag. Similar to like John Lennon's Two Virgins album, which I showed some time ago, which came in a paper bag as well. Fortunately for us, there wasn't any naked members of Led Zeppelin on the cover. But this is in really, really great shape. But there are differences. I'm not fully aware of all the differences in cover variations. I know this is a, a very, very early pressing. It didn't have any barcode or anything. There's your inner sleeve. And again, when I keep showing this, it's the same thing. But Swan Song, isn't that pretty? That's a nice, pretty clean vinyl. And a nice label. Again, I know very little about the cover variations, and I just have never taken the time to look them up to see exactly which cover variation this is. Who knows? Maybe I've got gold. Okay, John Bonham dies, and that's really the end of Led Zeppelin in a sense. There was some leftover stuff that they decided to put on what would end up being their last album, which is entitled Coda. Here's front, there's your back. This is the first pressing of Coda as well. Just a hodgepodge of stuff. Not that it's a bad album, it's just kind of, let me fix my mouse here. It's not that it's a bad album, it's just, I don't know, I find it less cohesive because it wasn't recorded all at the same time. And again, I think the Swan Song, basic Swan Song label. Anyway, like I said, in '77, Song Remains the Same, live album, wonderful album. It has a booklet with it and everything, and I am on the hunt for that for a decent price, and I will find it. Since then, I mean, you've got the most recent live album, which is wonderful, which was issued on vinyl. I just haven't gotten that. I've got it on CD. But that is just a very, even though it doesn't have John Bonham, it's a fantastic album. There's also a collection, I hate using the word greatest hits, but there's a collection that came out a year or two ago of Zeppelin stuff that's also on vinyl, which is very interesting as well. And of course, there's a bunch of CD stuff that came out, box sets, and Live at the BBC, and How the West Was Won, all these other great collections. But anyway, for my sister Dee, who I love her so much, I would gladly give her my Led Zeppelin albums. I would too, Dee, because I love you so much. But I will never, ever, ever, as long as I live, surrender my Fruit Loops. And that's the end of that. Until next time, everybody, peace and love.